When the mirror smiled, but you didn't. When someone sat behind you, but the seat was empty. When the knock came, and no one was there. Still here? A few months ago, I moved into a small apartment above an antique store in Connecticut. The rent was cheap because the place was old and a bit rundown, but it had character. The apartment came with some leftover furniture, including a tall, vintage mirror bolted to the wall in the hallway. From day one, something about that mirror felt off. Not just creepy old, it almost felt aware. I started noticing it the first week. Every night, when I passed the hallway to go to bed, I had this strange urge to glance at the mirror. Just a quick look, and each time, I felt like I saw something in the corner of my eye. Not my reflection, something behind me. But when I turned around, the hallway was always empty. One night, around 2:30 a.m., I got up to use the bathroom. On my way back, I glanced at the mirror and froze. My reflection was off by a second. Like I moved, but the mirrored version of me lagged. Only for a moment. But it was enough to make me stand there, staring. Then it smiled. I didn't smile. I just stood there, heart pounding, trying to convince myself I imagined it. I backed away and slept in the living room that night, avoiding the hallway completely. The next day, I called the landlord and asked about the mirror. He said it had belonged to the previous tenant, a reclusive older man who died in the unit 2 years ago. They left it because it was bolted in, and no one wanted to deal with removing it. I asked if anyone else had ever mentioned anything weird. He hesitated and said, "Couple people broke their lease early, but no, nothing specific." That night, I covered the mirror with a sheet and went to bed early. At 2:30 a.m., I woke to a noise. It was soft, like fabric being pulled. I got up, heart already racing, and stepped into the hallway. The sheet was on the floor. The mirror was uncovered. And in it, I saw something that made me freeze. My reflection was standing perfectly still, but I was not. I was breathing heavily, panicked, but the version in the mirror was calm. Then it slowly tilted its head to the side. I ran back to my room and locked the door. I didn't sleep. I stayed awake until the sun came up. First thing in the morning, I grabbed a hammer and pried the mirror off the wall. Behind it was nothing unusual, just old drywall and some faded wallpaper. But when I turned the mirror around to carry it out, I noticed something strange. The glass wasn't reflecting me at all anymore. It was just blank, dark, like a window into another space. I left it on the curb and never touched it again. 2 days later, a neighbor I'd never met knocked on my door. He was older, maybe mid-70s, and said, "You finally got rid of it, huh?" I nodded slowly, unsure what to say. He glanced past me into the apartment, then said, "My brother used to live here. He was the one who put up that mirror. Said he could see someone in it, and that they talked to him at night. We thought he was losing it. Then one day, he just stopped coming outside. Found him dead in bed. Heart attack, they said." He paused, looked me dead in the eye, and added, "But the sheet he used to cover the mirror? It was balled up on the floor, just like he left it." I used to work late shifts at a diner just outside of town. We close at 2 a.m., and most nights I catch the last city bus home, Route 53, usually empty that late. It wasn't the most glamorous ride, but it was reliable, until one night about 6 months ago. It was a Tuesday. cold, rainy. I remember checking the time as I stepped onto the bus. 2:18 a.m. The driver, an older guy I'd seen plenty of times, gave me a tired nod. I took my usual seat toward the back, popped in my earbuds, and stared out the window as the rain streaked past. We made a few stops, all empty. At one point, I glanced up and saw someone new had gotten on. I hadn't noticed them bored. They were sitting across from me, a few rows up, hood pulled low, face in shadow. They were completely still. No phone, no movement, just staring straight ahead. At first, I assumed they were just another late-night commuter. Then I realized something weird. Every time the bus passed under a streetlight, I could see the reflections of the seats in the window, but not that person's. There was just an empty seat reflected in the glass. I thought maybe it was the angle or the light, but the more I stared, the more certain I was. They didn't cast a reflection. I tried not to freak out. Told myself I was tired, overthinking. I even glanced at the driver to see if he was reacting at all, but he looked completely unfazed, like nothing was wrong. At the next stop, the bus halted and the doors hissed open. The person stood up. They moved slowly, like their joints didn't work quite right. As they passed me, I caught a better glimpse of their face. Only, I wish I hadn't. It wasn't right. Their features were off, like a blurred photo trying to form a human face but glitching. Eyes too far apart, mouth slightly crooked, like it had been drawn on and erased. Then, they sat down directly behind me. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I could feel them back there. Close. I couldn't hear breathing, but the air felt wrong, colder, thicker. I debated texting someone, saying something to the driver, anything, but I just sat there, frozen. Then I felt it. A tap. Just one on my left shoulder. I turned around slowly. No one was there. The row behind me was empty. I turned to look down the aisle, and the bus was completely still. Just me and the driver now. I stood up and walked quickly to the front. Hey, that person who just got off, where did they? The driver looked at me through the mirror. What person? He asked. I didn't know what to say. He looked concerned, but not surprised. Then he said something that stuck with me ever since. You're not the first to see it. I stared at him. It started showing up a couple years back, he continued. Always sits in the same seat. Never gets on at a stop. Just appears. And it only ever rides with people who are alone. When we pulled up to my stop, I got off without saying a word. I walked home in the rain and didn't take that route again. I've been using a bike ever since. I still think about that face. About how it had no reflection. And sometimes, when I'm riding past a bus stop late at night, I swear I see a figure sitting there, waiting. I spent last October trying to escape the noise of the city. I found a listing on a remote cabin near an old, inactive rock quarry in rural Pennsylvania. The place was cheap, secluded, and surrounded by woods, exactly what I needed. I arrived around 4 p.m. just before sunset. The air smelled like wet stone and pine. The cabin was basic: one room, a wood stove, a bed, and a small bathroom. There was no Wi-Fi, no cell service, just silence. The owner left a note saying the quarry behind the cabin was off limits due to unstable ground. I didn't plan on exploring anyway. The first night was peaceful, aside from the usual creaks of an old wooden building. But around 2:30 a.m., I woke up suddenly. I couldn't say why. No dreams, no noise. I just felt, watched. I got up, checked outside. Nothing. Just thick forest and a fog starting to settle. The second night, I woke again at almost the exact same time. This time, I heard something. A deep metallic thud, like a steel door closing far off in the distance. I looked toward the quarry, but I couldn't see much through the trees and mist. I told myself it was probably just the old mine shifting or echo from some wildlife. By the third night, I was uneasy. I stayed up reading by lantern, keeping an ear out. At 2:33 a.m., I heard something again, but closer. It was a dragging sound, like someone pulling something heavy across gravel. It lasted for about a minute, then stopped. I wanted to believe it was an animal, but the pattern of movement felt deliberate, too slow, too heavy. The next morning, I finally gave in and walked toward the quarry entrance. The trail was overgrown, and the gate had rusted shut. Through the chain-link fence, I saw the slope down into the quarry. It looked like a crater in the earth. Near the bottom, I saw something unexpected, a shack. A smaller, almost identical cabin built right into the stone wall. It looked abandoned. No windows, just a door barely hanging from its hinges. That night, I barely slept. I kept the lantern on. At exactly 2:30 a.m., the dragging returned. Then came footsteps. I sat up listening. They were getting louder, approaching the cabin slowly. Gravel crunching, deliberate steps. They stopped right outside my door. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then, a single knock. I couldn't bring myself to respond. After a minute, I heard the footsteps retreating, back toward the quarry. At sunrise, I packed everything and got in my car. I didn't look back. On the way out, I stopped at a small gas station about 20 minutes down the road. The old man behind the counter asked where I'd been staying. I told him about the quarry cabin. He raised his eyebrows and said people used to live near the quarry back in the 60s. There were bunkhouses down there for workers. One night, one of them went missing. They searched the quarry for days. Never found him. Then he added, "You're lucky. Most folks don't hear the knock until it's inside the cabin. If you made it this far, maybe you belong here." Subscribe to Whisper Cage. More true horror is waiting.